I'm Callie, Kory's sister.
Oh, go. Now go. Go.
I'm Callie,
It's
Kory's
okay.
sister.
I'm Shauna, Kory's mom.
Dr. Phil understands.
I'm Macy, Kory's other sister.
Performance-enhancing drugs have become a large problem in the world of sports. There are talented athletes using them just for better performance, which in turn makes them think they deserve more money. Young athletes around the world see their idols using these drugs and makes them think, well, why shouldn't I? If he can too. I want to be as good as him someday. Using these drugs can lead to terrifying consequences. I believe that if the leagues can come together with the United States Anti-Doping Agency, the use of performance-enhancing drugs can come to an end. The USADA should establish a policy that prohibits the use of performance-enhancing drugs against all professional sports. My first point is that children around the world look at athletes as idols, and once the children see their idols using things that made them so good at what they do, it makes them think that they want to do it, and it could potentially lead to them becoming better athletes as well. According to Tracy Zeimer from ABC News in 2000, only one thing came above athletes as role models, which was parents. The simple fact shows what great impact athletes have on children. The same article states that of the 1,500 kids surveyed, 52% believe taking steroids is common, and many young athletes mirror the example that the professional athletes set for themselves. It is very safe to say that what we see from professional athletes, such as bad sportsmanship and illegal substance abuse, is counteracting what professional sports are supposed to teach children, which would be sportsmanship and having to work hard for something you want to achieve. If you ever heard for everything good, there is always something bad, that is the whole complete truth with the use of performance-enhancing drugs. Yes, it can give athletes the body image that they are looking for, but only with great consequences. Men can develop prominent breasts, shrunken testicles, infertility, and women can develop increased body hair and a deeper voice. A few experiences both men and women can experience would be severe acne, heart and circulatory problems, drug dependence, depression, and aggressive behaviors. The famous stories of Lance Armstrong and Lyle Alzado are perfectly fitting to what can happen to a human's body if they use illegal substances. Lance Armstrong, most famously known for his 7 Tour de France titles, was a performance-enhancing drug user throughout the course of his career. In 2012, the United States Anti-Doping Agency released evidence against Armstrong, which included documents such as emails, laboratory tests, and monetary payments. Travis Tygart, chief executive of the USADA, said in a statement, "This evidence shows beyond any doubt that the U.S. Postal Service cycling team ran the most sophisticated, professionalized, and successful doping program that the sport had ever seen." After all that proof came out from what Armstrong was doing, he was stripped of all his titles, and worst of all, developed cancer. Former All-Pro defensive end Lyle Alzado's story is much more horrific. Lyle was the first NFL player to admit to the use of performance-enhancing drugs and is known as the poster boy for steroid abuse among the league. He, just as Armstrong, developed cancer. Lyle's cancer, on the other hand, is much more tragic, which happened to lead to him in terminal brain cancer. Lyle Alzado passed away from his cancer, and he himself blamed his abuse of the drugs and human growth hormone to his brain cancer. The effects performance-enhancing drugs can have on children around the world and consequences of what can happen to one's body, so I believe that the United States Anti-Doping Agency should establish a policy agreeing with all professional sports organizations that players who use the illegal substances need more and stricter punishments. My first point is that the leagues could establish a policy that could ban a player for life on their first offense, but that would be absurd. I believe everyone deserves a second chance, which is why in the policy I would propose it would only give a second chance. Each league does in fact have pretty strict guidelines to the usage of PEDs. Major League Baseball has just recently updated their PED policy due to the Biogenesis project when 13 players were caught buying performance-enhancing drugs in 2013. The new program increases the first offense from a 50-game suspension to 80 games. Second-time offense also raised from 100 to now 162 games. And the third offense is a ban from the league forever. The National Football League's policy is on first offense the player is suspended for 4 games without pay, 8 games without pay, and the third offense is a year with no pay. The NBA's first offense will get a player a 5-game suspension with a mandatory attendance in a league anti-doping program. A player's second incident will give them a 10-game suspension with continued counseling, and the third will result in a 25-game suspension and even more counseling. If a player then gets caught a 4th time, that player will receive a minimum 2-year suspension. The National Hockey League is perhaps the strictest of any league, with the first offense getting a player a 20-game no suspension, followed by a 60-game no pay suspension, and the third incident will get them banned from the sport for life. Now, my policy would essentially be one of almost replicating the Olympics policy, which is if an athlete tests positive, they're given a 2-year ban from the Olympics, with the second offense getting an athlete banned for life. The way I would solve the problem of performance-enhancing drugs would be to first get the offices of all professional sports teams together, along with the leaders of the USADA, and discuss a way to bring the use of illegal enhancers to an end. The way I see best fit for the drugs to disappear would be to make a policy each league already has and make them stricter than they already are. I believe that all first-time offenders should receive a year of suspension and only one chance after that. With the first suspension, I would make it mandatory for the athlete to attend a counseling program where they will then understand that the sport is not about themselves and it is about setting an example for children. The second incident would result in banning the player from the sport for life. Players of all leagues would also do more testing, such as urine samples, blood tests, and a new method called carbon isotope ratio mass spectrometry. The cost of this policy would only revolve around the price of the increased tests. An estimated $10 million are spent testing for drugs from each sports organization. My policy would drive that up by 50% due to the extra amount of tests I would regulate each league to perform. This plan would work for a number of reasons. First off, players would be intimidated by the strictness of the suspensions and no pay. Secondly, the extra amount of tests would mean less athletes getting away with the use of these performance-enhancing drugs. And finally, this policy would work because I would make sure the athletes know who they are setting examples for, and the game is really, in fact, about more than setting examples for kids who look up to them, rather than looking for an extra contract boost. I cannot stress it enough. Athletes need to learn they are role models, and that the game is not about the money, but about setting examples to children and high school athletes to know if they really want to achieve greatness, they need to work for it. I think athletes who use these drugs need to be aware of the side effects that come with them, especially with the chance of cancer and possibly death. The United States anti-doping program needs to come together with the league officials and discuss a new policy. This is why I believe the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency should establish a policy that prohibits the use of performance-enhancing drugs against all professional sports.